Good afternoon and welcome. What you see is a very familiar map, California map, and I would like to show you where we are fire-wise. Here are perimeters that have been going on for a while. These are old fires. Here are large fires. And this are the California fire perimeters from 1950 up until now. And if we zoom in, you notice here and over the summit, there are unburned areas. And honestly, it's one of the few unburned areas. So yes, we are ready for a large fire. What is way more concerning is actually the ignitions that we have every year. But since we have amazing firefighters, they come up and they put out most of them. Because here are the last 5 years of starts. And if you can see, zooming in here in our area, that's quite a bit. So here we are, and everybody is watching the Southern California fires, and we're all nervous, scared, overwhelmed, and that's why we're here to talk about this. So if you have any questions, if you want to talk, please just raise your hand and share with us where you are at, what you feel is your biggest problem, because I am surprised that we have this survey that we put out, and right now we have over 1,400 responses, and mostly you're all concerned about evacuation routes and how to safely get out so firefighters can get in. The next thing is you are frustrated or concerned that your neighbors are not doing enough. And neighbors do what they do. They have their own issues. Some of the neighbors can't do a lot because they are either elderly or they don't have the resources. And then fire insurance is another big concern that we all have. And we all know that insurance premiums, if they are at all available, will go up. But in this community, we have one resource, and that's ourselves, because let's not forget, if there is a fire, please be aware of it, and also be ready to take personal responsibility, because I really think that that's the one thing that we all, that's where it all starts. It starts with us, and then from there it goes up to the neighborhood, to the communities, and that's it. That's Government is not going to solve all our problems, but it can certainly solve some. So let's see what we can come up with. And again, if you have anything that you want to share, anything you want to say, please raise your hand and I will pull you and you will join me here, because I really don't want to spend an hour just talking at you. I want people to participate. And if you hear noise in the background, by the way, I apologize, but we're actually really lucky. We have a crew that is here that is doing some tree work for us. And Kathy, if you can unmute yourself. Kathy Jones, you raised your hand, so if you can unmute yourself and share what you have to say. Hello, Kathy. Maybe we'll here. Debbie Gibbs, can you unmute yourself?
I think I did. Can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I'm sure a lot of people disagree with me, but a major concern I've had for years and years is continuing to allow burning in the unincorporated county. To me, and I read on happening now during the summer season or during burning season, there's always an escaped burn pile. And it seems to me we're on the precipice of a disaster. As experienced and well-intended as people are, burn piles sometimes escape. And what we saw in LA, I mean, a good brisk wind and we could really be in trouble. So I would love for the unincorporated county to take the same step that Nevada City and Grass Valley have taken and ban burning unless there's a permit, and there's adequate supervision.
Okay, but how would you get rid of the fuel then? Because there is, you know, a lot of people got the new green waste cans, but one green waste can is really not enough, especially if you're on acreage. And we also have to reintroduce fire because prescribed burns are a tool because good fires prevent bad fires. There is banning burning is, I believe, not feasible unless there's a valet service that comes, picks everything up, and hauls it away. So I think that burning, definitely responsible burning, um, it is one of the the very good tools that we have. But here, let's see here.
Can I can I respond on that, Pascal? You
Sure.
don't you can take your flammable vegetation to places like what Fire Safe offers, so it can be hauled off of your property, if you're, inspired enough to do that. And what I do on my 10 acres is I bury it. And so I create a lot of swales and hugel mounds. I'm retaining water. I'm improving my soil. So it's, why waste perfectly good organic material by burning it? So that's
Okay.
my opposing view.
Okay. Let's hear what Joanne has to say. Joanne, can you unmute yourself?
I think I can.
There you go.
I just really wanted to echo your comments on the burning. I think, in my experience, it is highly effective, highly productive, but it does require certain training and certain understanding. Many people think, oh, the grass is green, I can burn this pile. And yet, I, from experience, growing up with my parents burning, have seen the dry duff under the green grass start to escape a burn pile. So I think there could be some more education. There's been some great workshops by the Resource Conservation District on this, and I would encourage people to attend if they're interested to get the right education. I love the idea of the composting and the swales and kind of burying it, but not a lot of people are physically able to do that. So I really would love to see that acceptance of everyone's style in terms of, that, and really not look to ban burning, because I find it to be a very productive tool on my property. So yeah, just looking for everybody to have their own safe space and do it in a way that they can maintain long term, because maintenance is key, ongoing all the time.
Oh,
Thank you.
yeah. Thank you. Randall, if you can unmute
Yep. Did
yourself.
that work?
Yep.
Does that work? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, another point on that too, Pascal, I feel that um, air pollution, there's tremendous air pollution from these burn piles, but realistically, at a Board of Supervisors meeting, you no doubt were there maybe a year or two ago, Supervisor Hall said no, realistically, given the volume of green waste, they had to continue allowing people to burn here. I like the idea of composting. I think that those large containers that become available to pull green waste away for people who can't handle it on their properties is really the way to go, because I personally dislike all that smoke. I hate having all that sequestered carbon released. And it's not the same as the good small birds. It's a different kind of burning.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Joanne, fights.
Hi. One thing about prescribed burning is that pile burns are the most escapes that occur. And a lot of that is because people build big piles and they go away and they have lunch and they think it's okay. And CAL FIRE talks about this a lot. So I do agree with the previous commenters that with education, especially my friend Joanne Drummond here, with education, people can learn how to burn piles safely. And biochar rings are another good option. But for people that have larger acres, or for those surface fuels, the litter, the duff, there's no way that you can rake away and compost all of that. I have for years within 30 feet of my house, but it's also disrupted soil quality. So broadcast burning, where you're burning very low flame lengths in the understory, is the most effective way to reduce those surface fuels, that litter in the duff, and also return nutrients through the ash back to the trees. And why that's especially important is think about the rains of ember. That is what causes houses to burn more than anything else. It's not direct flame contact. And when you reduce those surface fuels by using prescribed fire, what happens is that those embers land and they don't go very far. They don't do too much. Or if they do, the flames are very low. But I agree, it's something that people need to be really carefully educated about. And that's why we have started a very extensive prescribed fire education program at the RCD. But it's just a very important tool. And one more comment for people that don't know my background, I have 33 years on wildfires and prescribed burns. And as a fire scientist, I used to go out on wildfires and set up fire behavior equipment, heat triggered video cameras, temperature sensors, and measure the effectiveness of different fuel treatments in slowing down and decreasing the intensity of wildfires. And treatments all usually have a beneficial effect, but there's no doubt that understory burning is really one of the important ways to do that. So you can mute me back, Pascal. I don't know how to do it.
I will do it. Mo Graber, can you please unmute yourself? And if you have a camera, turn the camera on.
Can you see me? And can you hear me?
We can hear you, that's for sure.
Okay.
Can't
All
see.
right. So thank you, Pascal, for this opportunity. Mo Graber with the Banner Mountain Firewise community. And I just had three quick comments and a commercial. Well, two comments and a commercial. The first is I purchased a really dense forested area that was not cared for, and we have really used the burn permit process to our advantage. I find that the escape burn piles are people that don't keep it at the 4x4 and don't man it. So I agree, people need to be educated. You don't light a fire and walk away and sit and watch TV. But I find that we take full advantage of the free waste program and haul stuff out of here. But there are limitations to the diameter of what you can bring to free green waste. So our larger trees that we take down ourselves, we buck and burn. So we do appreciate that opportunity out here in the unincorporated area. The second is some of the people on our Firewise community are kind of asking, since it takes some time to address these evacuation routes as far as cutting and trimming, particularly the overarching oaks that bridge around our primary evacuation zones, would there be a stomach or interest in the communities to do this voluntarily? There may not be grant programs available, or they may be years in coming. Would individuals along some of our primary evacuation routes like Idaho, Maryland, Banner, Lava Cap, Pittsburgh, Mine Road, would there be a willingness to voluntarily start cutting back some of the trees that line the road? I recognize there's an easement there, but would individuals be willing to come together as a community, work together to clear some of those trees that are really congesting our evacuation routes?
Okay.
And my last commercial, I appreciate you very much, Pascal, putting an ad out about the Banner Mountain Firewise community meeting January 28th. Miss Feitz Kaufman is going to be our speaker there. So if we have people in the Banner Mountain area that want to learn more about prescribed burns and tips and techniques to defensible space, She'll be there in our meeting, and so will Stephen Rentz, who is an OES Defensible Space Inspector. So we have that available and are hoping to get people interested to come and learn more as well. So thank you very much, Pascal, for this opportunity.
All right, thank you, Mo. And Gardenia, if you could unmute yourself and turn your camera on. And what is it you would like to say?
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Oh, wonderful. I wanted to address the burning as well, the residential burning. I lived on 20 acres of land in the Ridge, and during that time, we took advantage of a free chipping program that the county was offering. And so we were able to get a lot of those manzanitas, threatening manzanitas, chipped and put them back into our property as mulch. And so we stopped burning because I'm highly sensitive to smoke myself. So I know that there are ways around it, and we were on 20 acres. But more importantly, I've since moved. I'm in the Gold Hill community of Grass Valley, where we have a radio watch community going on, where we have ham radios, and we have practice sessions so that if there is a fire, we can communicate by the ham radios if the phone service or the internet goes down. And that way we can communicate to one another about evacuation routes and what's blocked and what's the best road, and if anybody needs help in an emergency or whatever. So, and we're also part of a Firewise community. We have our certificate and everything for that. But what I wanted to address is that I understand prescribed burns, and I understand on larger properties using burns. But in my community, we're just outside of Grass Valley limits. It's like, a 5-minute drive to downtown Grass Valley. Our homes are really close together. When one person burns, the whole neighborhood is covered with heavy smoke. You cannot walk. You cannot take a walk. I've had situations where I had to run around and close all my windows because my home was filling up with smoke because somebody was burning. I ended up calling CAL FIRE. They went out there, and it turned out the person wasn't even burning appropriately or the appropriate materials. So I'm seeing that there is a difference when homes are close together and when you're on a lot of land in terms of the impact of the smoke. I'm also thinking that in addition to getting a burn permit, that perhaps there should be mandatory, and I mean mandatory, education with a certificate that assures that a person is responsible and educated on how to burn if they are going to burn, because I do see a lot of irresponsibility. I've seen burn piles in my neighborhood without anybody attending. And I called
and that is obviously, that is one of the major problems, and I think that Joanne addressed that
yes,
you cannot go and you can't just light a pile with wet leaves and stuff and just walk away and have lunch. That's not the way to go.
yeah.
To get your burn permit, you are supposed to watch a video and get your burn permit. You are also supposed to implement what is being said on that on that video. So that is something that is where the personal responsibility comes in. And the thing is to walk over to your neighbor and say, hey, this is really smoky, and are you sure that today is really the best day to burn? Go for it. The important thing is not to just run and say, okay, you can't do that, and yell at somebody. Just talk to them. Or if you have a burn pile, let your neighbors know on the day off or the day ahead. Let them know, hey, we're gonna have a burn pile, and yes, I have space around it. Yes, I have water to it, and no, I will not let it just sit there and just walk away. I think if we all communicate a little better, maybe that would help a lot. Maggie, sorry to keep you waiting. Go ahead.
No worries. I agree with everything you just said. I think communicating, especially with our immediate neighbors, is a big positive always. I'm the head of the Jones Bar Firewise community. In terms of removing green waste, we definitely use the county's green waste bins, or like the big, large containers that they offered last year. We also are offering a second round of getting rid of green waste. Me and some other community members have our own biochar kilns. Biochar kilns do not put off the same amount of smoke that open burn piles do, and are a safe way for people to reduce to get rid of green waste that does not involve having to truck it to the transfer station or other things. I think also biochar kilns are very transportable. And so if other Firewise communities might be interested in doing a community biochar kiln day similar to this, they should reach out to me at jonesbarfirewise@gmail.com. I also just, aside from that conversation, want to say that we here are surrounded by a lot of BLM parcels and the South Yuba River Canyon. And those are 2 points of concern, in addition to secondary egresses, which we have had a really difficult time working with private landowners on, and the county on as well, to establish any options for those. But I think that there are areas of the county that are not private land that we have a lot of grants that are out with different nonprofit organizations to try to start to do some landscape scale mitigation and fuel reduction projects on some of these more public and differently owned parcels. But those are an area that are certainly of a concern that we have a lot less control over than private parcels. Thanks, Pascal.
Thank you. Indy, if you are ready to talk. Can you speak up a little bit?
Yes, hi, my name is Indy, and I just wanted to say thank you for hosting today. I think this is a fantastic conversation, and I wanted to just comment on how much I also utilize burn piles on my property. We bought a severely overgrown property about 10 years ago, and it has been quite the work in progress, and it has been something that's been super helpful for us, particularly because in our community, we don't have an ability to dispose of the larger debris, the larger trees that we have to buck up and burn, because the green waste only accepts smaller green waste, smaller debris. And the other thought that I had was possibly the county expanding the ordinance for fire mitigation to include unimproved properties. As I drive up Highway 20, I look around and I just see all the underbrush and the fuel, and we're located in Pin Valley, so we go to town quite a bit, and I look at it and I think, oh, this is just one disaster waiting to happen. So I'm wondering about the possibility of the county expanding the fire mitigation ordinance to include unimproved properties.
Well, you'll be surprised to hear, but there is an ordinance. The vegetation management ordinance also deals with unimproved parcels. However, the process to get a unimproved or vacant parcel, to get them to do the fuels mitigation, is it's long, it's drawn out, it's arduous, and it is not always successful, because the way it works, and it's the same way with improved parcels, they will first try and just send a letter and talk to the property owners, and then you have 6 months to do something. They will come back, check in, then there might be another letter, so it takes a lot of time. And the Highway 20 corridor, a portion of that is going to be taken care of with the South Ponderosa, I believe it's phase 2 fuel break. So there, you should see a little bit of improvement there. But again, public lands, especially BLM, let's just call a spade, especially BLM, they are not the most diligent when it comes to clearing along the property lines, which sometimes, to be fair, is due to the topography. And I mean, it is not always easy to clear on really steep parcels, but there are ways to do it. I think that's one of the things that we all need to keep in mind, that a nice flat parcel is easier to take care of than a parcel in the River Canyon, but that doesn't exempt anybody from at least making a good faith effort. Thanks, Cindy.
Thank you.
John Pettit.
Yeah, a couple of things. One is I wanted to say thanks to Maggie for running our Firewise district. I'm on Jones Bar and right at the top of the edge of the Yuba Canyon, so very aware of stuff running up the canyon. I think one of my concerns is that there's a lot of good ideas about training people and stuff, and the people whose burn piles get away are the people who don't apply for permits. I have a neighbor who last year had a 20 by 20 burn pile where he was trying to keep the grass next to it from catching fire with a wheelbarrow full of water. And we ended up calling Cal Fire and they wrote him a ticket, which was good because I think that got his attention more than anything else would. But I do wonder about enforcement on burn piles and whether calling Cal Fire and if somebody doesn't have a permit or it's big, I always feel bad about calling law enforcement on our neighbors, but when you've got a 20 by 20 burn pile and it's looking like it's going to get away, I'm going to do that.
Well, to be clear, if you call 911, you do not automatically call law enforcement. It is it's emergency dispatch, and yes, it is going to be Nevada County Sheriff that will answer, but they can route you to the emergency dispatch center.
No, I get that, but when you get a ticket, they view it as law enforcement, and I think it was an expensive ticket.
Probably if so, expensive tickets happen when you burn on a non-burn day, when you don't have a permit for a large burn, or especially if your burn pile gets out of control and it reaches the neighbor's property. Technically, you can be billed for suppression cost. So now imagine we're in May or June and someone's burn pile gets out of control and they are sending a normal wildland dispatch. So at least 3 engines, a water tender, a dozer, a crew, and then 2 tankers and a helicopter. That gets expensive very fast, but honestly, is it a bad thing? Probably not, because unfortunately, sometimes it's the only way to actually make people sit up and take notice. Probably your homeowner's insurance will pay for it once, and then you can go to the California Fair Plan and pay so much more.
Mm.
All right, thank you, John. And Carol, are you ready? Could you unmute yourself?
Yes, thank you. I was wondering how to do that. I did write you a note, and I do really approve of this conversation. I've heard good things from all sides. There's one other, and I do think that we do a lot of prescribed burning here on our 84 acres, and I always try to let the neighbors know ahead of time that it's going to happen. I have a list of them that I email and just send around. And also we put up prescribed burns please do not report signs on the road so that people passing by, because we're on Auburn Road, there's a decent amount of traffic there. And I think that's very helpful. But I also would encourage generally for the population to understand that by burning, you improve your property enough that our property is now really quite fire resistant. And I think that if a fire came through here, we would survive just fine because it's thinned and we have burned the duff and debris. And it's if everyone knew to do that and was capable of doing that, and you're right, a lot of education is needed, then the whole community would be quite a lot safer. I do have one other concern. Not sure this is quite the right place to put it, but prescribed fire is also great, and in fact, the only way to fight certain invasive species. And that is usually need to be done out of fire season, so it's during the bans. And my property has about 35 acres that need to be burned out of the ban. And CAL FIRE is totally resistant, even though we've proven to do that quite safely. So I know that would be alarming to anybody who saw smoke and fire out of the burn ban. But I would like to say that hopefully one of these days we can get CAL FIRE to do a site visit and carefully examine the safety of a burn like that. And so I could actually save my 35 acres of goat grass. And if the community would support that, I would be so happy. Thank you.
You know, maybe the Resource Conservation District would be a good avenue for you to reach out to them, and because like Joanne Feitz or Dr. Feitz Kaufman said, they have an extensive program, and I know that they do some prescribed burning for invasive species control. So that might be a good avenue for you to reach out. Thank you, Carol.
I'll just say to that point that I understand that that's happening, and I am in contact with them, but I have not yet seen a burn conducted by anyone outside of the burn ban. So it's an issue.
It does. I've been around for a while, and yes, there are burns when the normal burn when the burn ban is in effect. There are still burns that are being conducted, permitted burns that are being conducted. So it does happen
in this county.
Yes.
Oh, I'd love to talk to you about that.
Okay. Jan.
Hi, it's Jan.
Jan.
Yes, Pascal, I know when there's a burn outside the permit window because it'll be on Ubernet right away. Thank you for that. I agree with most people. I don't even want to repeat all the arguments in favor of burning and prescribed burns. That's part of the landscape, is very important. One thing that I would want to add to the discussion is the importance of leadership in Firewise communities. I'm in a very nice Firewise community, and leadership is all what counts. And as a result, we are doing a lot of education together, demonstrations, and we work together with a lot of volunteers from the neighborhood to get things done. So the Firewise communities are fantastic. Other thing I want to bring up, I'm glad to hear about biochar kilns in the county. I'd love to try that too, because I do agree that, the loss of carbon sequestration is an issue when we burn, and I know we have to often, but if there are ways to do it with a biochar kiln, that's something we should promote. You can also create biochar without a kiln, even though it's not as efficient. Last thing real quick is I'm also interested in hearing what people have to say about home hardening and what we can do with that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jan. Yvette, if you could unmute yourself. Hello.
Hi.
Yes.
Hi there. So my question and concern is money, because I'm retired and I'm single and I'm barely hanging on by hook or by crook with the fire insurance costs and taxes. And my neighborhood is firewise, and I do my best to, weed whack every spring. I wait until it's a little late in the season so it doesn't grow back, because I can't afford to do it over and over again. I have 2.5 acres. I hear a lot of people say, well, if you can't afford to maintain your property, you should sell it. And I am probably going to try to sell it. I did try 2 years ago, and the housing market, as we know, is not very good right now. So the reality is, if I can't sell it, where is the funding for retired people who are low income? Why is there no funding for this? Fire Council says the funding doesn't exist. And why is the state not providing funding for low income people so they can create defensible space? It's extremely costly.
Yeah, it is extremely costly, but funding, the problem with funding for private properties is that can be construed as a gift of taxpayer money. If there's grant funding, you have to apply, and there's always more application than there's funding available. However, I really believe that you bring up a good point to say that having people be able to stay in their homes and maintain both the home to home hardening standards and around is absolutely important, because in the end, it will cost us probably more even if a house catches fire and the ember cast takes out a whole row of neighbors. That's going to be more important and more expensive than going and actually having some programs where where you can actually would go out and help people access and functional needs. I don't know what the status of the access and functional needs program is at this time, because Fire Safe Council said that the funding wasn't there. However, they have been awarded some FEMA money, so we'll get there and try to get you some clarity where that program is.
Thank you. Yeah, that would be really helpful, because I'm doing my best within limited means, and I am going to probably try to sell my house. But in the meantime, my house is still there, and it needs to, the property needs work, and I'm doing the best I can. But if you just don't have the money, you don't have the money.
Yep. Thank you. Sandy, Houston.
Thank you, Pascal, for giving me the unmute button. That's very helpful. Just a real quick response to Yvette first. If she is in a Firewise community, some of the Firewise communities try and get neighbors together that can I'll help you a little bit with your house, you help me a little bit with your house. So if she's not attending the Firewise community meetings, if she's even in one, that's also a resource. Helping neighbors is one of the big ways that we're going to get through this. That's what Resource Conservation District is doing for us. But I wanted to get away from fire and look more at, are there studies out there as to what is the appropriate number of trees on acreage, and are there truly benefits to having overgrown brush on your property for the critters? Because so many people are concerned, and they think that when we start clearing all our lands that the animals are not going to have a place to go. I see that the animals aren't going to have a place to go if we have a wildfire either, and many of them won't survive, but I'm not seeing a lot of research on that, and I'm wondering if anybody else has seen any such research.
Oh, wait, there's quite a bit of research on how a well-managed forest actually can increase biodiversity and provide better habitat. There's quite a bit of that around. So we're going to have a follow-up story on this, and I'll include some that are specific to Sierra Nevada studies, but there's a lot around. And we had Joanne Feitz-Kaufman, who just spoke earlier on, and she can talk to a lot about that as well. But if you have you don't have to burn everything that you take down. You can lop and scatter. You can have some, you know, you can have little piles, and eventually critters will move in. And if you have a more open canopy, there's more light coming in. There's going to be better, you know, critters find more to forage. There's all that is happening. So, and you're right. If we have a catastrophic wildfire, we will lose all the wildlife as well. That's true. So there is definitely there, but there's a lot out there, and I will put some more of those studies there so you can read to your heart's content. Thank you. And Mr. Keith Porter.
Yeah, hi, Pascal and everyone. Thanks for doing this. I'm on the committee for our Firewise community, Burma Road, and we have had several events where we've helped other people who are not able to manage their own property. So the suggestion that that's a way that someone can get help is absolutely true if you're in a Firewise community. We've had several projects, one of which last year was clearing a bunch of Scotch broom, and I have to burn that because I can't give it away, and I don't want to let it sit there and regenerate more plants. So this was on an adjacent property to mine that is unoccupied, undeveloped, and the property owner was amenable to us doing that. So it was a major step forward, but it's unfortunately, I have no choice but to burn it a little bit later this winter. The other thing I wanted to go back to, there was a comment about clearing egress routes, roads. And Burma Road's fairly heavily traveled now, and we would very much like to have it made more safe in terms of overhanging oak trees primarily. And at one point, a couple of years ago, we were on a county public works list to have that done on Burma Road, but now it's evaporated, it's gone away. And I don't know if there's any way we could encourage the county to support more of that, because it would be a very important improvement where we live. The other thing that I would say is that what I've done for all of the blackberries and other things like that that I clear, I've created a fairly large pile. I call it my forest compost, and I keep it moist by watering it maybe once a week during the summer, so that it's never going to burn, but it is in the process of creating some pretty good soil underneath it. And it's a technique that since I had the space to do it off where it's out of the way, I was able to do that, and it's worked well for me. Thanks.
Right. Thank you. Kipchoge. Kipchoge.
Am I, can you hear me?
There you go.
Thank you.
Hello, neighbor.
Hello, neighbor. Thank you. I wanted to talk just a little bit about what I consider the sacrifice zone, which is that we currently talk a lot about burning and treating the forest on the canyon rim wherever we can, which I think is great. And what we don't talk about, what goes unsaid, is that according to our current planning, the Yuba River Canyon is a sacrifice zone because we're not doing any work in the canyon almost anywhere. And I think that the implication of that is that our canyon will end up looking like the other river canyons of California, which is basically after a fire, they're pretty much completely denuded. And the way that we can avoid that is by thinking about ways that we can do work in the canyon. And based on some of the work that we've been doing here on our place and your place, Pascal, and other neighbors, and the fire crew that we're working with is a nonprofit from Chico called Terra Fuego, and they have a lot of experience burning on steep slopes and burning without pre-treatment using a cool prescription. So that means burning when it's moister, so that you don't have as much mortality of the things that you want to save. And especially if you've already treated the rim, you can start to do that into the canyon. So I'm interested in kind of like a comprehensive view of the Yuba corridor and the rim that would go from the reservoir to Washington, and thinking about it as like a series of projects that will safeguard the canyon in addition to the community.
Yeah.
For yeah, so if anybody's interested in talking about that with me, I'm trying to work with some different interested parties, and you can reach out to me.
Yeah, and just to clarify, there is so on the, let's call it the Nevada City side of the South Yuba Canyon, there's the project that Kipchoge and other neighbors that we're a part of, which is it's called the Hoy Purdon Project, which is treating some 800 acres in the Yuba Canyon on the Nevada City side, and it was a long process. It took about 5 years to get everything lined up, and we were lucky to have American Rivers, who applied for funding from the Sierra Nevada Conservancy, and they approved first the planning funding and then also the implementation funding. So they will do it. And one of the things that actually I wrote in the application for that is that we're fully aware that where we are, we might lose our house, but if this project is implemented and the fuel density is lesser, it might just slow a fire coming out of the canyon. It just might slow the fire down enough so that the firefighters and especially the air tankers have time to put a retardant line on top of the ridge and protect Nevada City. And so there's another project on the North San Juan side, which is the Yuba Watershed Institute. That's the South Yuba Rim project. That is in there too. But again, these projects take time to implement. Then you have to have willing property owners that are willing to have the work done and are okay with that. Honestly, I was very excited when they said that yes, we could get that done. We got the funding. That was amazing. But what I would like to do is I heard a lot in the surveys. I heard a lot about problems with neighbors or private roads and even county roads, and that neighbors were not doing what they are supposed to do. So, you can always, your local fire department, CAL FIRE, or even the county have defensible space inspectors. And you can ask for a visit, and then you can also say, hey, by the way, what can I do to either work with my neighbor or can you talk to my neighbor? Because I really believe in the power of communication and talking to your neighbors. And if your neighbor says, hey, no, you stay off my property, there are rules. Yes, there are rules. You can't simply have your trees hang over the fence. That's not okay. That rule is there. It is the vegetation management rule. And again, talk to your neighbors. If you can't talk to them, get somebody else to talk to them. And Theo, you have something to add here? Hello? Theo?
It was a different topic.
But go ahead.
I arrived a little bit late. Was home hardening and home preparation covered already?
No, not yet. That is the next thing that I wanted actually to jump. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my comment is just, I know there's so many private property challenges and grant challenges with giving money for home hardening. And I know CAL FIRE is doing a lot of tests right now, and Nevada City has a little program going to help landowners with really basic retrofits. But we have an issue where the most important fuels, the ones that cost so much in resource allocation during a wildfire event, are the ones we're trying to save in large part, in addition to the forests and the habitat. And I'm just looking for more expansive ways to imagine the future and thinking about, like, for places like Grass Valley, Nevada City, if there's some way to separate the continuity of the home fuels with intermittent walls between close houses, or just kind of trying to think outside the box with how to do this urban conflagration problem like we're seeing when there's a wind-driven event with home-to-home ignition. And ways to support neighbors with retrofits, the low-cost retrofits, and kind of shift the focus to expand to those programs with, like, calling on your neighbors about vegetation. But I haven't heard a lot about, like, calling on your neighbors about, like, hey, can you check out your eaves? Can you check out your vents? Let me help you with this project. So I think any kind of discussion about really focusing on making that our focus and priority, and, like, all the suggestions of, like, what to throw into the house during the summer, or red flag warnings with mats and all of those issues. I think the vegetation is so important, and that's what I do for work too. I'm so passionate about it, but I think we're really with the agencies, we're really missing the point with how to enforce the home hardening. There really isn't anything about that, and every time it's brought up in a public setting, the response that I hear continually is, oh, well, we have really good, 7A permit requirements for new construction, the building code. And it's just laughable because that's not going to help our situation in any way until we have to rebuild. So just really want to refocus that conversation. Thanks.
Yeah, and the home hardening portion is such an important portion of to have anything that's survivable, and breaking up the continuity of fuels, like you said. I doubt that Embercast is gonna be stopped by any walls. However, there is probably a really good way to tell people to work with the municipalities or even with the county. There are it's something, the vents, the eaves, not stacking totally flammable stuff right next to the house. The common sense stuff that, yes, it is on a lot of websites. It's not always easy to find. There's a lot that's being done for new construction, that's true, but most of us don't live in new construction. Most of us live in homes that have been built for a number of years, decades even. And that is definitely something where there needs to be more emphasis. And the squeaky wheel gets the all. And so here's the thing: the Nevada County Board of Supervisors is going to have their annual workshop where they set their priorities, and that's going to happen Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday next week. They will talk about wildfire and about a lot of things with the grant funding, the programming, and where the priorities should be. So here's the thing: I have this this little poll here. So if you wouldn't mind, everybody, here's do tell where do you think that local government should allocate their the funding, because we all know it's finite. So it's like, so if you could, everybody, if you could take a look and answer that would be really helpful, because I would love to see what people like you, people that actually are engaged and that take out time. And by the way, thanks for taking out for spending your lunch hour with us. So that is definitely something where I really appreciate it. But I would like to know where you think that what should be what's the most beneficial use of basically taxpayer dollars. And Randall, you have something to add?
I'm sorry, just a quick question. I only found out about this by chance. Really happy I did. On Nextdoor, should I have signed up for something on Ubinet to have known about this Zoom meeting? Because I'm really happy I ran into it.
Well, you could, for example, sign up to the Monday preview, our newsletter, because
No, I get that. I get that.
but that was it was in the
Oh,
newsletter.
oh, I flunked the test then. Okay, I read it too quickly.
It was in that newsletter. There's also within on the survey story, there was also a reminder about this meeting. And I think given that we had basically for one day and we had over 100 people here, I think we're gonna have to do these more regularly. I mean, if that is something that if that's something that you were interested in, and we could focus these on one specific topic and then really dig into, because from what I'm seeing, there's really a lot of interest, and so we should probably do these more. And I got somebody asked me why there was nobody from the county or the fire departments here. I did that on purpose. I did not want to have a panel discussion between agencies, and we need to hear from the community, because we're the ones who live here. We're the ones that live in different areas. We all know our area, and that specific knowledge, this local knowledge and the local willingness to get something done, I think that's really, really important. So thank you everybody for doing this. And also I see that roadside clearing, and then grants to Firewise groups, and enforcement of the vegetation management ordinance right now are the top three where you think local government dollars should go. I'm going to keep this up just a little bit, and then there's still a few people who have not taken the poll. There's absolutely zero obligation, but would be nice to know. And okay, let's close this one, and then so here are the results. I think that's pretty clear. So if you want to reach out to your council members, your supervisors, because actually they listen. Contacting your local government officials is the best way to get some movement behind this. So, and we are 2 minutes out from 1 o'clock. So let me just see, let's see what else we have. Oh yeah, I would love to know how many of you are in the unincorporated area, Grass Valley, Nevada City. So here is another quick, really helpful. Thanks for, oh boy, and you're fast, all of you. Cool. All right, so we have the majority if you are in the unincorporated area. Yay, unincorporated area. And Nevada City, Grass Valley, Alta Sierra, North San Juan. Okay. Here we go. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I'm running here. Yeah. Theo, in the Q&A, Theo says, the survey did not have an option for local government providing funding for low-cost home retrofits. The senior assistance option actually was that that was actually for the retrofits. And so I think we'll have to tell everybody, our local government, how we want them to spend the money. Meanwhile, it is 1 o'clock. That went by really fast. I'm gonna keep the survey up on Ubernet for a little bit. Collect as many answers as possible, and by tomorrow there will be a story that will dig into the data, and hopefully that will also provide some more fodder for discussion. And next week, again, like I said, there will be the Board of Soups workshop. And how about we do this again in 2 weeks, and we'll see, maybe, who knows, maybe you'll get incredibly active and everybody's gonna start listening. And meanwhile, we're all gonna go out and do what we can. But again, personal responsibility, and as a community, I think we can do more. And please, if you want any of the resources that were mentioned, be that the Resource Conservation District or the Firewise communities, email news@ubernet.com. Happy to give you any and all the info that was mentioned today, and we will have this up on YouTube pretty fast here. All right, with that, thanks everybody. Thanks for coming, and stay safe.